The amount of people that do ask, and they, why were they adopted then? Why are they with you? And it's so uncomfortable. It's a really horrible question.
When we went to meet the kids' social worker, doctor, nursery worker, and all the people that have been with them, and then they're discussing it, I was like, we're going to have a break in a minute.
We had to have quite a few, didn't we?
Yeah.
Awful information.
It was, you just get so angry and upset on their behalf.
They're your children.
And we still haven't even met them yet, but they are. And I think you need to realise as a person then, what can you cope with? Because that'll be in the back of your brain. And I'm thinking, just got to chill out, relax. It's about the kids. So it's about what you can cope with as well. The same with the needs of the children. Like we said, we want a sibling group. So we need less needs, I suppose, from these children, or what, we can cope with.
But then you say that, but then once we're introduced to the kids, it's just such a roller coaster, and you love them and they're yours, and it is love at first sight, and you don't care.
And then whatever happens, as we said, we've got all the therapy in place. They're your kids, so you do what any parent does.
Despite everything, and they've all got issues, complex, difficult issues for us to deal with. But if I knew that at the beginning, it wouldn't have changed the decision. We'd still have
that's so true. So when I was told about my son, I was told, he didn't have any. Well, they didn't know he was a baby, but they weren't aware of anything. And then during introductions, because obviously children in the care system, they have an adoption medical every 6 months, and that fell during introductions. And so we went and they weighed him, they measured him, and they were really concerned about the size of his head. And I'd not been told anything about the size of his head before, that there could be anything wrong. And the doctor said, he might have to go for a brain scan. And he was distressed at the time. He didn't like being weighed. He didn't like being measured. He likes doing what he wants to do. He's still the same now. But he, so he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't hold anything or anything. So they couldn't say if he was doing what he was meant to be doing. Yeah. And I thought, oh my goodness, I met this child 6 days ago, and you're now telling me he might have to go for brain scans and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't understand what does that mean. And then she said, he might have developmental problems and blah, blah, blah. But I came away from there and I felt upset, but I thought, he's my boy. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
No, that's
and
social
workers, what are we going to do about it?
How do we the social workers then said, we need you to sign something to say whether you want to go ahead with the placement, because he was meant to be moving in like a week's time. I said, well, of course I do. We'll deal with it together. I'm his mum now. And you think if I'd have given birth or anything, you don't say, actually, no.
And it's take that one, I'll have another one.
Exactly. I thought if
I think that's when you know that it's right, isn't it? Is you're thinking, these are my kids now. Yeah. How do we
deal? They could have told me anything.
How do we deal with this situation then? And what do I need to do as their parent? And that's it.
It was a trauma. I don't think she suffered any trauma herself in a physical or emotional sense. I think the mother was obviously having some difficulties in their family, which is why they put up for adoption. But there wasn't anything trauma-wise for my little girl. I think when she was born, I think the mother was drinking. I think she was in hospital for about a week or so after she was born. We thought that might cause some issues with her growing up, but like I said, again, I just think she's so perfect already. She hasn't shown any kind of difficulty. She can walk, talk, move, everything. She recognizes people. So again, it might be too early yet to determine any of that. She's very, very hyperactive. Like she's a million miles an hour all the time. But then I think most kids that age are the same. So trauma-wise, she may have had a little tough start to her life, and now she doesn't show any of it, as far as I'm concerned.
I think we were prepared to think through these sorts of different scenarios during before the assessment process, the training. So we used the Western Bay Adoption Service, which was our local adoption agency, who were excellent, and our training was a 4-day training course, and the final day was a visit from the medical advisor for the adoption service, and that's quite sobering when he talks through some of the impact of alcohol and drugs and so on, and how it can take many years for that to manifest. So you have to be prepared for it, but that training enables you to get your head around what could be coming and may not.
And also what you can do about it, what support you can get, and how you can deal with it. Because we deal with things that I would never, ever have thought that I was capable of doing.
I think as well.
Big pat on the back for me there, but do you know what I mean?
think-
you just do it.
I think as well as when you're going through that process, is like, I think we're lucky because there's friends of mine that have had kids and absolutely zero training. So they could end up in the situations we're in with children with issues or not so many issues or lots of issues with absolutely no idea of support or training. Whereas we
to get it.
Yeah. Whereas you go through the training and you can ask questions to people who have dealt with this probably 50, 100 times.
You almost feel like no birth parent has a manual to be a
they
parent, whereas going through the adoption process, you're asked, how will you deal with that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, but you could deal with it like this.
Yeah.
It's given
Shame they
advice,
don't
you're
do that
guided.
for all parents, isn't it? Should maybe teach it in school.
Yeah.
And adopted children do have the right to lifelong support.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
And they can always go to their local adoption agency, and yes, it's not foolproof, and there may be times to wait and so on, but the support is there, and it's statutory. And you're also fiercely protective of their story.
Yes.
And you have to be very careful who you tell what, because that isn't my story to tell.
And we're trying to teach the kids that now, because our daughter took a photo in to school for show and tell, and she said, I want to tell about my story. And we're like, whoa, hang on a minute. You know, what do you want to tell? Because your story's yours. Once it's out there, there's no taking it back. You know, so maybe we have a chat about what you're going to tell and the detail you're going to tell first, because you just need to be a little bit careful. And like I say, it's their story, so we never go into the details of it, because people do ask in work. You know, people just think they've got a right to ask, oh, what's wrong with your kids? Nothing's wrong with them. Why are they adopted then? Well, that's their business.
The amount of people that do ask, and they, you know, why were they adopted then? Why are they with you? And it's so uncomfortable, because it's a really horrible question.
I mean, it was quite interesting when she did the show and tell, because one of her little friends piped up and said, oh, I wish I was adopted, because obviously she'd made it sound such great fun at our house, you know, and which I thought was lovely. But she did turn around and said, oh, no, you don't. She said, because you have to go through some really horrible stuff to get there, she said. And I just thought that was a really grown-up way for she was 8 at the time, you know, an 8-year-old to sort of respond to that.
Yeah, how do you deal with that curiosity? What, you know, because that, as you say, that is your child's story, isn't it? And you know what they've been through, and you know that's painful for you as well, because you know they're asking quite intrusive questions. But how do you handle that?
I think my response to everybody is, that's not my story to tell. And it's not. He owns that story. That's his story that I'll help him deal with as we go through life together. But ultimately that's his story. And you know, it might be an awkward response for somebody because they've not asked in a rude way. They don't know it's a rude question. And
we have told our close family and friends, because I think those people that are involved, intimately involved with the family, they need to know, because sometimes our kids do display some
there's actions that they do and behaviours that they do. So grandparents and that. We are in and are in, and at first they were like, we don't want to know, and we're like, no, you actually do need to know some stuff, because if you're going to look after the kids or have them for a few hours or anything like that, you need to be aware.
It's not just child behaviour.
What these behaviours could be and why. Right? Oh, okay then.